Really, all these people saying I'm dead, saying what's going on, am I gone, dead project. Oh good, it's not like I haven't uploaded a video in... Welcome to another update for the Foundation. This one has been a long time in the coming. I know it seems like I have been completely absent this entire time, but for those of you that are Patreons, you know that I've been posting some monthly updates on what I've been doing. For those of you that haven't been privy to that information, well, this video update will hopefully catch you up on a lot of what has been happening over this period of time. So, what have I been doing all this time that there hasn't been any videos? Well, it's been basically all back-end work. Now, back-end code is pretty boring to look at. I'd have to show you coding screens to make a video, and that wouldn't be very interesting at all to see. And I thought that maybe I would be a lot farther at this point, but with all the things that have been going in my life, from adding a new member to my family to figuring out this new full-time work stuff that I've been doing, I've found that it's a lot more difficult to get the time in on the project that I originally had hoped I'd be able to do. The main two things that I've been working on is, one, a code rewrite. I moved really quickly when I was doing the code when this was my full-time project, and I was trying really hard to get as much content out as possible, as quickly as possible. And that meant I made some choices that weren't really optimal as far as code is concerned. And they were starting to give me a lot of maintenance headaches and making some of the bugs extremely difficult to fix. And the final thing that broke the code's back was when I tried to do saving and loading. Saving and loading was pretty much impossible the way I had things coded up. Something had to be changed. So I redid a lot of the stuff on the back end. Essentially everything on the geoscape, I redid it. I didn't have to code it from scratch, but I had to go through and fix a lot of things to get everything streamlined, to get it so performance will hopefully be better, and to make it so that maintenance and bug fixing in the future will be a lot easier. It also meant that saving and loading could then be completed, which I have done. I'm sure there's still a few bugs in it, but for the most part it's working, and I will work really hard on getting those bugs tested before I release the next alpha build. So with all that out of the way, my most recent work has been on budgeting and finance. That's pretty much the foundation of any of these kind of games, because anything you want to build, anything you want to hire, anything you want to construct, you always have to spend some sort of resources on it, and that resource management is kind of critical for these kind of games. So that's what I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about and showing you today. You may notice that I don't really have the game running. I have my development system up. The reason for that is because as I've been doing this finance thing, I've realized that it touches a lot more parts of the game than I initially thought. And so I've had to kind of disconnect and unplug a lot of game features as I've been reworking everything to connect with this financial portion of the game. So first of all, this is the monthly evaluation report. You're going to get this every month. If you've played an XCOM game before, you're pretty familiar with how these work. Except for, in this case, the Council of Funding Nations, or the Funding Council, or whatever you want to call them, they don't really get to make or break your game. They really have no say on whether you win or lose, only on a portion of your income. So although I call it an evaluation report, it's not going to determine whether you win or lose. It's just going to give you some brief information on how your past month went, and maybe some areas that you could improve on, or show you the ones that you did really well on. So there's a few things here. It'll show you how well the general masquerade is going, whether it's starting to fray, whether it's good. And then it'll show you the SCPs you encountered that month. And when it's fully hooked up, you should be able to click on those and go and see that SCP and that fact sheet that you have on it so far. Then it'll show you a brief summary of some of your budget information, some of the important points, so you can see where you've grown, where you're falling. The next thing to look at is the research and development section, because there's at least 2 other resources that you'll need to pay attention to while you're playing this game. And the first one is D-Class. Now on the wiki, the D-Class are kind of this ethereal resource that just is present with however many the Foundation wants. But here in the game, being the administrator, you're actually going to have to keep track of how many D-class you're actually able to pull into the system and how many are live at the end of each month. You need them for your experiments, you might need them for some of your containment procedures, and if you don't get enough of them, that could pose some serious problems for you. And the next item there is research data. Now, though, I'll probably have a different name for it by the time I really get into the technology and research. But the general idea is you're going to be gathering research data from your experiments that you do on the SCPs. And that information that you gain is then spendable on different projects. It'll be how you unlock new technologies, new procedures and policies, new containment methods. All of that's going to come from your research on these SCPs. In order to get the research, you'll have to do authorized projects on these SCPs. And the projects can go really well for you, could go poor. But there'll be more on that as we get into that in more depth. On that note, we're now going to move over to the budget report tab. And this is going to be pretty straightforward. You'll see there's just a few stats here breaking down your various expenses and incomes. And then there's a section for what procedures you have active and what front companies you have. We'll discuss that a little bit more as we move over to the budget management tab. Now, as I was going through and doing a ton of design on this budget and finances portion, I decided that I didn't want to make the player spend a whole lot of time micromanaging various aspects of the Foundation. I wanted them to have a lot of control and to be able to customize things to their liking, but I didn't want them to spend a ton of time. So as you see here, I've simplified a lot of budget management to some drop-down selections. And so although you can't set exact dollar amounts and things like that, you can influence what those end results will be like, and that'll have various effects over your facilities and people. For example, with general compensation, you can set how well your employees are paid compared to how they would be paid at a normal job outside the Foundation. And the higher you pay them, the more likely they are to be loyal, the more likely they are to develop better stats because they will, feel compensated for harder work. And then, like with the hazard compensation, the better off they're rewarded for hazardous and dangerous assignments, the more likely they are to actually act bravely and complete those assignments. And so by setting these bars, you're able to really quickly either save money or spend more money to get huge benefits, but you don't have to spend a lot of time tweaking exact amounts. Then with front companies, I haven't done a whole lot on them yet because they get kind of complicated. They're going to touch a lot of different aspects for the game because the primary purpose of front companies is going to be to hide the Foundation's activities. You can make various front companies to disguise what your operatives are doing so that the masquerade stays intact and people don't become aware of your activities. But I wanted to make an option for people to use front companies as a way to make money as well. And that way they could be like, you know what, countries, I don't want to deal with your little fickle nature, I'll make my own money. And so front companies, although they'll take some work to make money, I hope that once I get to that more in depth, there'll be an interesting way to make some money on the side and increase your profits over what the fickle funding council might give you. So operational procedures down there, those are things that you'll be able to unlock through research and other events that will give you various ways to tailor and customize what you're doing. They'll have various benefits and costs, and they allow you to even further customize some of the operations you'll do. So some of these might allow you to gain more D-class at the risk of exposing the Foundation's activities, or they might sacrifice a bit of employee happiness for a bit of cost savings. And now we're going to move over to the regions tabs and take a look at what's been done there, because with the funding council being a huge source of income for normal gameplay as I expect, that means I had to touch and work on some of the country stuff. So here we have the region report tab. I've cleaned it up, done a lot of work on it. It shows you a few pieces of information. It shows you what procedures you have active for this region, and it shows you the list of the countries of interest that there are. That's pretty much nothing new from what I've shown. But what really starts getting new is when we go over here to the management tab. You'll notice there's very little stuff here actually. There's the procedures that you can go through and set, as I've discussed. And up here at the top, there's the ability to appoint 2 different personnel. You don't have to appoint them, but if you appoint them, you can get different benefits. So you can appoint an overseer council member, someone who will handle all the various issues that come up regarding this region. He can give different bonuses. If he's very skilled with economics, he might be able to get more money out of your council members in that region. If he's skilled politically, he might be better at handling situations that come up in that region. And so on and so on. And the response commander can be some soldier you find skilled that you can put there, and he is in charge of the first responses to different things that happen in that region. So the more skilled he is, the better he is at handling those events that come up. And since an overseer council member can only be assigned to a certain number of tasks, you got to be careful about whether you want to assign someone to every region, or is it better to have them be over other aspects. There's very little here, and there's a reason for that, and I wanted to discuss kind of the philosophy or focus of the game design that I've come up with over this past little time. And that is that the primary focus of this game I want to be on the SCPs. And that's pretty obvious, and it's going to be pretty easy to do that one because the SCPs are going to be the main meat of the battle screens. They're going to be the main way that you do research and get points that way to unlock more equipment. You're going to spend a lot of time with the SCPs just naturally, and they're going to be the stars. And the second focus is characters, and that's not just the people that you hire that you get to do things with, get them leveled up, experience, and assign them to various jobs. But it's also things like the groups of interest. I want them to be kind of a character in their own right, interacting and being a vibrant part of your experience. That would be my second focus. And the third focus is I want a lot of time and beauty and fun with the geoscape. I want you to spend time there building your bases, seeing how you're covering and expanding over the world, seeing how the world's reacting to what you do, how the SCPs fight against you. I want things to be happening there. And those are my top 3 focuses. And so as I kind of said earlier in this video, I don't want you to spend a lot of time micromanaging every little detail. So I thought for a long time, and brains stormed over what I wanted to do for management of countries. And I eventually decided that I didn't really want them to all be listed here on the management tab and you have to go through each one. What I decided would be better is that as you play, different things can happen and pop up different events that you have to respond to in the countries. And depending on how you've assigned your personnel and how you decide to respond to those events that come up, you can improve or lose relations with different countries, as well as, capturing an SCP. That'll improve your relations. But these events will be kind of a little story blurb that comes up that you can deal with and assign things. And that way you can have all these little interactions with all the different countries, but you won't have to spend a lot of time in spreadsheet type interactions, setting different settings and doing different things that way. And that may not be something that everyone likes, and maybe it's not the right choice, but I'm hoping that as I've shown you these things today, that you guys can comment, have some discussion, and we can figure out what things are good, maybe what choices I made that weren't the best, what needs to be added, and we can help develop and make this a game that we're all going to love to play. So I hope you enjoyed this update. I hope you leave lots of comments and things down below, and I'll catch you next time.